Welcome to PTE Plus online lessons. Today we're going to be going on with PTE reading, and in particular we're looking at reorder paragraph type questions. So this is the second lesson in the series, and in today's lesson we're going to be teaching you an ultimate technique in reorder paragraph. So before we start, let's just review what we learned last lesson. So last lesson we talked about what reorder paragraphs were, we gave a general sort of explanation, and we went through and had a look at an example. So we also talked about the scoring criteria. The scoring criteria is going to be an important aspect of having good success in this question. And that's why we're going to be coming back to it again and again and again. So really drilling into you this whole scoring criteria. So you remember that you get marks not for each correct placement, but instead for each correct pair of adjacent boxes. So that means if there are a total of 5 different options, there are a total of 4 different marks. The pairing between A and B, B and C, C and D, D and E. That's why it's important for us to remember the concept of a pair, and we'll come back to this obviously later. Okay, so now let's go on with the sample. Do you guys remember the sample text that we had a look at last time? If you don't remember, that's okay, because I'm going to be giving you 30 seconds to have a look at it and try to answer it yourself on a piece of paper. Okay, your time starts now. Okay, so that was 30 seconds. Remember, if you're going to take extra time, you're always welcome to pause the video, but of course I don't want you to take too long because it's good to get into a habit. So now let's go through the answers together and talk about some common mistakes that a lot of students encounter. You're going to be quite surprised because I think a lot of you out there will be making the same sort of mistakes. So the first common mistake that a lot of people have is they'll put the first Scottish bank, to do this was the Bank of Scotland, as the first option. That's incorrect because in this particular case, for this particular passage, it is not so. And a lot of people will be confused by the word the first. And likewise, they'll be confused by the word the last. First, last, second. Obviously, they do help with some indication and they do give us information at times, but it's not reliable, okay? Because there's no way to ensure that the first Scottish bank is indeed the first sentence. Maybe there's another sentence above it. Maybe they're talking about a different topic, and this is transition to a new topic. So be careful when you see things like this, like the words first. Don't automatically assume it goes at the top. And the same thing with if you see in conclusion or to summarize, it doesn't mean it automatically goes to the bottom. We need to take a lot of care, and we need to not look at individual places, but rather, here's the key word, pairs. Remember, it doesn't mean anything to us if we can figure out this goes up at the top, because if we don't have the pairs matched up, we're not going to get any marks anyway. So that's why it's important for us to look at things in terms of pairs and not in individual position. Not what comes first, not what comes last, not what comes second. So eliminate that mentality and think about it purely in terms of connections between pairs. Now, the second most common mistake that a lot of you guys will make is that some students will then come to the word but, trying to figure out the contrast paragraphs. Now, what does this mean? Essentially, what it means is that students will see the word but. Let me give you a good example of how to demonstrate this. The first point might be, I'm going to eat breakfast, I want a lot of food, but I'm late for work. So they see here that but I'm late for work as the third segment. And of course, that segment talks about work. So what a lot of students try to do is they try to match it up with another segment that talks about work. But in that case, it's not correct because the word but is showing contrast. The same thing for words like however. These are words showing contrast, so the bit at the back doesn't really match up with the bit at the start because work has nothing to do with my breakfast. It becomes very confusing if we're purely looking at the term but. So that's another common mistake. Remember, words like but and however, nevertheless, are all used to show contrast, and that's extremely difficult for us to work out connections with. So instead, what should we be doing? If we want to be avoiding things like putting things in the first location, if we want to avoid things like using the what but to try to figure out what the paragraphs are, what can we do? What we can do is we can look at how to generate correct leads. So obviously this comes in the form of analyzing the paragraph. In analyzing the paragraph, you'll realize that there's a bit of key information sprinkled in there. So here, let's look at B first. When this bank was founded in 1695, Scott blah, 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 and so on forth. So here, the key is when this bank, the word this. Notice how the word this works as a pronoun. So in this particular case, because we have the word this in here, when this bank, we know that it's not the first time the passage is bringing up the word bank, but rather it's brought it up before as well. So now we go around looking, okay, where else does it mention bank? Do we have any particular pronouns, any particular banks? The first Scottish bank, there we go. So the first Scottish bank is referring to a bank, and this obviously is referring to that. So through looking at pronouns, we can easily establish a correct lead, and thus the relationship between the two is built, and we've established our first mark. So what have we learned from this? It's that pronouns are used in place of a noun that has already been mentioned or that is already known. This is often used to avoid repeating the noun. So for example, Mary is my friend. She likes cake. Notice how I use the word she instead of Mary again. If I were to say it in a really weird way, it'd be like, Mary is my friend. Mary likes cake. To avoid repeating the use of Mary, we use words like she. So that sort of immediately tells us that she comes after the real pronoun. So then now I need to look for a female name in place of she. The same thing applies for all personal pronouns like she, her, they, them, their, it. It indicates to us that there is a pronoun in front, and these are just personal pronouns following it. So these are often following their topics. The same thing can go for demonstrative pronouns like this, that, these, those, and such. Let me give you an example with these. It's not uncommon to see hurricanes in America. These are regular occurrences through blah, 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 blah. So notice how these here references the hurricanes. So these are all really good clues. Possessive pronouns are also important. Words like your, her, his, our, their, its, they all refer to a topic beforehand, a pronoun beforehand. So once we're able to grasp the idea of using pronouns to help us identify the relationships, all of a sudden answers will be popping out from nowhere. Another example in the text we were looking at earlier will show up. But before we go on to that, let's talk about some other useful pronouns. For example, I want you to be familiar with using who, whom. These just often refer to people. That, which, when, and where often refer to certain times or places. These will also be really handy as well. Whoever, whomever, whichever, wherever, whenever, each, few, some, both, most, or none. Now, obviously you don't need to memorize this by heart, but when you see words like whoever or a time or where, you'll immediately know that it's referring to something beforehand. So as long as you're aware of the concept, you'll find yourself gradually, slowly applying it without even noticing it. So another correct lead we had in our example can be seen here. I'll give you a few seconds to see if you can spot it yourself. So here it says, in most countries, it is only the government through their central banks who are permitted to issue currency. So notice here how we've got only the government who are. So who are here doesn't refer to anything beforehand, but rather who are refers to the government. So you can see the connection is within the phrase. So what is the connection between the two then? If the who are refers to the government, you can see here that the connection is who are permitted. So who are permitted? Permitted here is another way to say the word allowed. Obviously it draws a little bit on our vocabulary knowledge. You can see here for A, but in Scotland, 3 banks are still allowed to issue banknotes. So you can see here, first of all, but tells us that there's contrasting information. And is there contrasting information? Yes, because here in E, it tells us that only the government is allowed to, but Scotland has banks that are allowed to. So first of all, yes, the but indicates a contrasting information, so we know about the relationship between the two. And also at the back, are still allowed, who are permitted. So are still allowed, is that in line with this? Yes. Are still implies it's still allowed, means that it's a positive continuation of what happened before. So it can be seen in this example, we're using signal words like but, and we're using clues and hints within the words to try to figure out the connection between the two. So now we have correctly identified two different pairs. So we should take the time to congratulate ourselves on learning this important key technique. Okay, now that's all we have time for today on the PTE Plus online platform. I hope to see you guys very soon in the next session, and we're going to continue to talk about these topics.